What is going on, everybody? This is BroncoJuggalo, and it is once again time for one-on-one with BroncoJuggalo. And today I have an amazing guest, a very special guest, Mr. David Howard Thornton, Art the Clown himself. Say hello, David.
Hello, David. I mean, I couldn't resist. I had to do that.
Yeah, me too. I want to thank everybody for joining and all the people that will be joining. And we're just going to kind of jump into things. The first thing I want to say, David, is of course, thank you so much for doing this for the channel.
Oh.
You know, I myself am a big fan. I know a lot of my friends are big fans. I do have one friend that doesn't like you that much, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Big fan of Terrifier, of course, and I can't wait to see more of your stuff. And doing research for this interview, I actually found some things that I didn't even know you were a part of that I'm very, very interested in checking out. So,
oh, that's really cool. Someone did their research.
A little bit, just a little bit. One of the things that I always say when I watch you in Terrifier, and then I watch other films of a comic book nature, I always say I want to see this guy portraying the Joker.
Oh, that guy.
I want to see David Howard Thornton portraying the Joker.
I would love to.
I'm not the only one that thinks that, but I found out in doing my research, you've already actually portrayed the Joker.
I have.
On the web series.
I have. It's on a fan-made web series called Nightwing Escalation. I was actually cast as Joker and Art in the same week.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a kind of crazy week for me. I was like, wow, I get 2 killer clown roles in the same week. I'm like, this is awesome. Nice. So I was pretty happy with that because he's like my favorite villain of all time. So it's just like this is the chance to play the character, even if it was for a fan series. I was like, why not? Why not?
So what can you tell us about that for a lot of people like myself? Like, I didn't even think to look for that kind of role for you or that kind of situation. What can you tell us about that series a little bit?
Yeah, it was like I said, it's fan made series. We all just did this for free because we're big fans of the comic book, and they brought me into the 3rd season of it as the big bad. We're supposed to still finish the season, but it's been about 5 years. It's hard to do when you're doing a fan thing because like none of us are getting paid, and so it's trying to find a time when all of us can get together to film because we're all have busy schedules and stuff like that. And we were actually supposed to film right before I started filming Terrifier 2, and then it was like 2 days before we were supposed to film, the location that we were going to be filming at a film like a amusement park fell through at the last second. It was just like, oh, come on, are we ever going to finish this thing? Because it was supposed to be a scene that was going to be very much like the Arkham Asylum game where like Batman. Oh, actually, it's Batgirl in this, where she's going through this. I'll explain later. But she's going through this area, trying to find Joker, and he's popping up on all the screens all over the place, taunting her and everything like that. I was like, oh my god, this would be so much fun, and just all fell through. But the premise of the show is it takes place when Batman has left Gotham. He's out and doing something in space with the rest of the Justice League, going after Darkseid, I believe. So he's left Gotham in control with Nightwing. And Nightwing ends up getting killed, actually, in this. Wow. And so Barbara Gordon ends up taking on the mantle of Nightwing. She overcomes her. It happens in the 3rd season where she overcomes her fear and also her physical disability that she had when the Joker shot her and paralyzed her. And she, out of pure willpower, she ends up getting out of the chair and training and coming back to be a Batgirl again. So it's a really fun series, and that's why they brought me in to be the big bad of the whole entire thing. So I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm actually pretty much right after we're done here, I'm gonna go and check that out because that just sounds awesome.
It gets better in the 3rd season. Like the first 2 seasons were very rough. It's like because they didn't have really good equipment then, so it was basically handheld cameras and stuff like that. And I think the 3rd season, they had started to build up a following, so there were some people that came in that actually had access to professional film equipment and sound, and so you see a big bump in quality in the third season.
Is that something that we can find on YouTube, or is it?
Yes, it's on YouTube.
Perfect. I definitely have to look for that. I really do.
Yeah, it's fun. I put a lot of like, my Joker I based heavily off of Mark Hamill and Cesar Romero's versions of the character. So I had a lot of fun with that because I think they're the two best versions of the character. They're the most comic accurate.
Yeah.
Mark
Hamill's definitely one of my favorites. I'm a Mark Hamill, and I love Cesar Romero though, because I grew up on the old Batman cartoons. You're only a couple years older than me, which, by the way, you look much younger than me. So congratulations on that.
Well, I got the grays coming in now, though. And
oh man, I lost mine at 25. So
mine's already starting to thin up here too, which sucks. I'm like, no, I hate it because it's like I hate saying it, but we have being an actor.
Growing up,
vain about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Oh, but I'm like, it is what it is. It's part of aging, I guess.
That's just it. Growing up in the 80s and 90s like we did, it was a much different time for everything. Everything's very weird now, and everything's very, everybody's got their cases about everything that we loved growing up, which is a whole nother interview.
Oh boy, yeah.
I loved Batman, the old Batman. I used to watch it on, ABC Family and stuff after school.
Yes.
And but then of course, also growing up at those times, 89 Batman, Jack Nicholson was to me the quintessential, and he still is, like the best Joker, like live action. But then, Mark Hamill, what he did in the animated series was just so amazing.
Oh, so good.
If your Joker's even part of it that good, it's going to be great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the fun thing about Mark, when he took on the role, I read that he didn't want to take on the role of the Joker first. He wasn't even cast as Joker originally. It was supposed to be Tim Curry. And Tim Curry apparently just wasn't working out the way they wanted him to work out for the character. And Mark was very hesitant. It's like, how am I going to surpass what Jack Nicholson did in the new movie? It's just like, how can I compare to that? But that's what I love about Mark's version. It's just like, he made it his own. But oddly enough, Mark's version is what I almost always pictured in my head, even before he did it, as the voice of the Joker.
Right. And what's funny is I was actually just watching an interview with him where he said that what made him decide to do it was because everybody related him to Luke Skywalker so much that every role people wanted him for was a space role. Everything they wanted him to do and he wanted to do something that was so the opposite that he could show his range. Yeah, exactly. And I just, it's just such an awesome. I love, because growing up too, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that grew up when we did that wasn't.
Oh God,
and Mark Hamill was my favorite actor. Luke Skywalker was my favorite character.
Oh yeah,
all time. I mean, he was my hero. That was, growing up, that's who I wanted to be. Him and He-Man, one of the two.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the villains that were from those series is the Joker. Those are just such great villains.
Oh God, Skeletor. You boob, He-Man.
Now, I've got a question for you about your voices. I guess I could ask it now. I know everybody in this chat wants me to get into the Terrifier stuff. That's what they want.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make them wait. I'm making them wait. So, okay, you're known for doing a plethora of voices.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's irony.
Yeah, exactly. It's very ironic that your most famous role is a character that doesn't speak.
Yeah. Go figure.
What cartoon character or comic book character, besides the Joker, of course, would you love to voice in an animated feature?
God. My dream is one day to be the voice of either Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny. Either one. Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, because one of my first big roles I ever did in theater is back in my middle school days, and this kind of what got me into acting was this performance where I played Mickey Mouse in Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Oh, dude, that was my favorite girl. I love that. That's still my favorite version of Christmas Carol.
Oh, it's so good. It was so, and it's like I was bullied a lot in school too, so it's like it was my moment where I actually got to stand out, and we had everything go wrong in the show. Like set fell apart during the Cratchit family dinner scene. Like the table broke and it launched the little bitty chicken over the whole entire audience. And I didn't miss a beat in these moments. I just kept going in character. I was like, oh boy, it looks like we got some fast food tonight, folks.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I was going to ask you if you could do the Mickey voice.
Oh, yeah, I'm Mickey Mouse. I hope you heard of me. I hope.
Oh man,
yeah, dude, I like, you know, like, because I always think of, you know, that scene in Roger Rabbit with Mickey and Bugs. Just like, it's like,
I don't think you want it, Doc. All right, Doc, here's the spare.
I don't think you should give it to him, Bugs.
Oh, I love that scene.
Just,
man,
I love it.
It's so sad too, because now that seems to be one of the next targeted things that people are going after.
Oh, I know. It's just like it was a comment on the culture at the time in a lot of ways.
But also too, and this is something I brought up with like Pepe Le Pew, and I don't want to get into a whole political or any kind of social argument here. That's not why we're here. But I just brought this up because this is how I look at it. When you were 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, you didn't watch Pepe Le Pew and think, "Oh, that skunk's raping that other cat."
Right.
You just thought it's a kid's. It's funny. You don't think about that kind of stuff. 5-year-olds shouldn't be thinking about that stuff to begin with.
Right.
So where was the harm? Why is it such a evil thing now? I don't understand. But that's just.
But see, the thing is too is like in a way he kind of was the villain too, because it never worked out for him. He always got his comeuppance in some way. It's just, and that was the joke. Is like they even acknowledge like this is not the right thing he's doing here, because like she's clearly like go away, get away, get away, and he's just
until the end when the tables turn and she goes after him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's trying to run
I thought
away.
that was hysterical. It's like, yeah, that was a great moment. It's like the tables turned. It's like, oh, now you know what it's like, you jerk. And it's like, but that's the thing. I never looked at like, I don't think people understand the intelligence that children have. I never looked at that as, you know, something to aspire to be. I was like, oh, he shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, I never once watched, you know, Elmer Fudd and thought it was be funny to shoot my friend in the face with my dad's hunting rifle.
Exactly.
You know, I never. Exactly. You don't think it was a cartoon, and that's the problem. I think is a lot of it is our generation could recognize things as cartoons and as and I think children still can.
They can. It's just people don't they underestimate the intelligence of children.
Yeah, the people that are calling for all this, and usually it's just an attention grab, honestly, I think. But the people that are calling for it, they probably don't even have kids, half of them. They think that anything that they just don't like as an adult, that should be reflected on how we do with everything. And but anyways, we're getting off topic here. I'm sorry.
I was like, that stuff drives me crazy, because I'm just like, no, that was never like, they weren't glorifying this in any way. Like, well, you're getting a little bit too crazy with some of this stuff now, folks. It's just
I told my friends the other day, if this keeps going, man, you give it a year or so, they may be going after all horror movies and stuff.
Oh, it's just gonna.
They're already talking about nudity in films, all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, when are they going to say that? You know, Art the Clown. That's can't have that. No, that's too terrifying. You know,
it's eventually going to stop, because people are going to be like, okay, this has gotten ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just
people are getting tired of it. It's
I think it's also people, you know, people are just trying to distract from bigger problems right now anyway. So it's just like, let's just see what we can to distract.
Exactly what I wanted to say, you know, and I really don't want to get into a political thing, because I know everybody has the political thing, but, and I feel this because I'm very independent and very middle of the road on a lot of things. I have my own opinions. I really feel that there are these people that have social and political agendas of either side. That's exactly what they're doing. Hey, let's look at this over here while I'm doing this over here.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I look at it. You know,
because both sides have a history of trying to censor one thing or another. You know.
It happened in the '80s with the Republicans and the music, and
Dungeons and Dragons. You had Mortal Kombat. You had just anything like that. Harry Potter, Star Wars, all that. He-Man. My grandmother was a very evangelical Christian, and she would not allow me to have my He-Man toys over at the house, because they were the toys of the devil.
And see, that kills me, because I was raised, and I still am a very Christian person. And I was raised in a very strict Christian religion.
Right.
But they didn't do that. They didn't even allow TVs, but nobody told me I couldn't have a TV or couldn't have a cartoon, or they recognized, people that in my church even recognized that this is imagination. It's fun.
It's
not
good versus evil. And that's the thing. It's just showing that battle of good versus evil. It's just like, we know Skeletor is the bad guy.
People just need to put their brains into things, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's don't get me
So
started.
I do have to ask you the standard question. The one standard question I ask people pretty much. What made you get into acting? What was your first gig? Did you want to be an actor when you were a kid? What did you know?
Yeah, I mean, what got me into it first off was just my parents, because you talk about the upbringing and stuff like that in the church. As I grew up in the Methodist church, and my mom was very involved. Well, both my parents were very involved with the church there. With the theater program. My mom would direct the plays every year, like the Passion Play and stuff like that. My dad, I remember like one time when I was a kid, my dad was Jesus. And so I remember when they had to actually crucify him, and I freaked out.
That's scary. That's scary.
It scared me as a kid. I'm like, what are you doing to my daddy? My daddy. But that's where I got my, start, and was doing the church plays and everything. Then, like I was saying, with it was really that production of Mickey's Christmas Carols, like when all that stuff was happening on stage. That's when it was like the first time I was getting the kind of laughs that I really enjoyed. And I was like, wow, for the first time at school with all these people, I was getting people laughing with me instead of at me. And I love that feeling. I was like, this is an awesome feeling. I actually have the power right now for once. And I'm bringing joy to people. I'm making people happy. I love this feeling. I'm like, I want to do this more. And that's when I started doing community theater. And, I wanted to do that for a while. And I thought about doing it for a career first, but then I was like, you know what? It's acting is not the most stable career path. There's no guarantee I would actually ever make it. So I want to be able to support a family and have a wife and kids and kind of stuff like that. I'm like, okay, well, I come from 4 generations of teachers. I love kids. So why don't I go into teaching? And that's what I got my degree in. And then my mom passed away while I was in college. And that kind of, changed my whole view on everything, because I was in a major downward spiral.
Oh, wow.
Right there. And I was doing my internship, and I was just not happy. I had a lot of stuff, like the year after my mom died. Then like the month I go back for my internship, my dog died. My grandmother died. The evangelical one, actually. My friend committed suicide, and my sister married a homeless man that is now in prison for molesting 2 little girls.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of like, what is going on? So I was major downward spiral, just like I was having basically a mental breakdown. And I was doing story time with my students one day in my internship in the schools, and I was doing all the voices for the characters. And they were all laughing and having fun. And I was like, man, I think I get more fulfillment out of entertaining my students actually than teaching them. I'm like, this is what my calling is. This is what it's always been. I just had to realize it for myself. And I talked to my dad, and expected my dad, who was a NASA engineer, very logical, level-headed individual, to be like, no, you stay with the teaching career, because that's where, stable career path, you can always have a job. But he was like, no, your mom and I always thought you should be an actor, but we just didn't want to tell you what to do with your life. We wanted you to follow your own path.
Right.
But he said, yeah, go ahead, just take a year off just to get your head back in the game, and then finish up your degree, because you got 1 semester left. Just do that so you have something to fall back on. Then go move to wherever you want to and pursue this. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it doesn't work out, at least you tried.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And what's funny is while you were telling that, up until the part where the bad stuff started happening, I was thinking, man, this guy and I have so much in common. My life is just like that. I went to once I was the first person in my family really to graduate high school and stuff like that.
Wonderful.
Like in my brothers and sisters, all the others didn't practically.
Wow.
I was very proud of that, because growing up, you said you were bullied. I got to be honest, there were times where I was the bully.
Yeah.
And there were times where I was bullied, and that's what made me the bully.
Exactly.
I
That's
got,
what people
you
don't
know,
understand. It's like most bullies are unhappy people themselves, and that's how they get their angst out.
yeah, it got
Yeah.
me, it got me expelled from school multiple times.
Hmm.
I got a lot of, I got in a lot of trouble. I got into gangs. I got into a lot of things like that. And I was always very proud that I still graduated. Not only graduated,
Yeah.
graduated on time. I graduated with my class. So when I went on to college, I always loved movies. I've always loved movies.
Hmm.
I always wanted to work in the movies. I wanted to be, I really got into, because I also went to school to be a teacher.
Really?
I went to college to become a teacher. And as I was getting my degree, I did a lot of, I always did like one physical thing, at least because I wanted a minor in physical education.
Right.
But I got in, I was like, I really want to see where this, I've never did the drama. I used to kind of, tease the kids that were in drama club and stuff. But I was like, you know what? I want to try this. I've always wanted to be in the movies and show business, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So I got in, I started doing the plays, the school stuff, and I did actually, and very please mean that I am actually trying to be very humble here. I do have a bit of an ego, but I did show some proficiency. I was not too bad, actually. I
Yeah.
could sing. I could, I could even dance, as weird as it might look, because I'm not a very like not your typical like built guy for dancing and stuff, but and I could act a little bit, and I did that stuff in college. But also, like you, I thought, man, it's just, I mean, I got friends that are in film school. I got friends that are trying. It's a 1 in a million shot. It's not gonna. I need that safe. And then I didn't even use my degree. I never even used it. I never became a teacher. And I got a job because I ended up getting a job that paid me much more than teaching would.
Yeah, not
So,
surprising. That's
you
what's so
know,
sad is like, teachers, people that don't teach don't understand how demanding of a job it is. It's not one of those jobs that you can just leave at the end of the day and just clock out and go home. No, you take
right.
that home, you take that job home with you because you got papers to grade, you got, lessons to plan, you have to deal with parents sometimes, you have to go to conferences, and it's a full-time job, and the pay is just nothing compared to the amount of work that you have to put into it.
Yeah.
It's abysmal what teachers are still paid. It's just I think it's a travesty. It's like to me, teachers should be some of the highest paid professionals out there.
I fully agree, because also too is, and you see it in schools, you do see it with a lot of teachers. They're not getting paid enough. So they really honestly are not doing their job to their
Right.
fullest because they don't feel they're appreciated. And I fully understand that.
And sometimes they don't even have enough money to actually do the job they want to do because they have to fund so much stuff out of their own pocket.
Yeah.
And
And for this, like especially now, right now, where we have to have parents being the teacher as well and that are not schooled, they're not, it's extremely hard. My wife has gone through a very hard year with the kids. I have
yep,
two little girls, one's kindergarten and the other's 9, but she's learning disabled.
yeah,
And we're not trained. We don't know, we're like,
no,
for even for disability. I went to school to be a teacher. I'm not trained for that.
right.
That's
That because
you
you
know
have those that are actually trained in that for special education.
I went to school to be a high school teacher. I
Right.
little kids, that's frustrating to me because I'm like, why don't you understand? It's like right there.
Yeah, it's
But
tough. It's very tough, and I'm hoping that's changing people's attitudes toward teachers now that so many parents have had to become teachers this past
yeah,
year. Now
I hope
I
so
hope they have
too.
a better appreciation for the careers, and they will be more willing to work with their children's teachers in the future.
Yeah. And at least if the acting ever doesn't work out, you can always go back to teaching, and then your
Exactly.
kids can be like, "Hey, I know you from that movie my daddy was watching."
It's like, why were you watching this movie? You're too young.
And see, and that right there goes back to what we were talking about. That should be on the parents and stuff to decide for people.
Hmm.
It shouldn't be on our society to decide what to ban, but
No,
what we should be letting our children view or do.
right.
That's that's my your know it for the day.
Different children can handle different things. Like
Yeah.
I've met fans at these conventions where I had a 4-year-old girl that had seen Terrifier multiple times and loved it. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, really? It's like, well, we
Yeah.
covered her eyes at certain points. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. But
I mean,
wow,
my my first theater experience was Friday the 13th Part 3, or not Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3.
Oh, that's a
My
great
father
one.
dropped me off at the theater, and then my dad. The next theater experience I remember from my young brain was RoboCop 2. Both are extremely violent movies.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was like that. I knew my parents taught me right from wrong, so I could, you know.
You could separate fact and fiction, and you knew
Exactly.
not to emulate the things you necessarily saw on screen. It's like I like going back to Looney Tunes. I never wanted to go out with a mallet and bash someone on the head with it or
No,
anything like
exactly.
that. Just like no, or get a stick of dynamite and put it in someone's pants or into a cigar or into a piano while someone's playing and no.
Yeah, we all knew what it was,
Yeah.
and I think it's actually insulting to our children now, some of the stuff that they are trying to pull.
Yeah.
You know. So right now, you're either currently involved in, or maybe you just wrapped. I'm not 100% sure. On a project called the Dark Offering.
The Dark Offering.
What can you tell us about this project, and can you talk about your character at all? You know, I know a lot of movies you can't talk about.
Yes, I did this late last summer, early fall. I found it. I was just in it for a day. They wrote a small little role in there for me, so I started the movie off. I can't say more than that about the character, but it's a really intense scene for me. So I got to be on the other side of being the villain for once. So that was interesting. I have more appreciation for my victims now for all stuff they have to go through, because I'm like, boy, I was hoarse by the end of the filming day, because I was like, oh man, all that screaming.
Right.
But it's a really cool concept though, because it's a film that we filmed during the pandemic exclusively over Zoom. The whole thing. So like no one's really in a scene together, like sitting next to each other. Everybody's having to interact over the computer screens, and it's built into the plot that way too, which is really cool.
Cool.
So yeah, it's that's what I thought was so cool about this too. It's like even though we were dealing with a horrible situation as not just a nation, but as a whole entire society, world society,
right.
You know, like it didn't stop people from doing creative things.
Right.
And that's what I loved about this. Like, yeah, we found a way around all of us being confined. We still found ways to make art and to do our craft.
Even in the movie that I'm in, that I was in recently, that's how I did it, because the people that were making the film, it was an anthology film, and my friend who's the director, he's in Boston. We're in the middle of 2020. We can't do. He called me up here. He's like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I want. I was like, okay, what about this? He's like, yeah, sure. And I filmed it right here in this room, and I did everything, right here, and sent it to him, and he put it together, put it in the thing, and that was it.
There you go. It just, that's what I think is so beautiful, how we, not just us, but so many people have found ways to do some really cool and creative things while they've been locked down this whole entire time.
Yeah, a lot of people have really rose to the occasion. Yeah. Some haven't, some have, but it's been really inspirational. A lot of stuff that we see, a lot of the cool, like stuff even on YouTube. People's shorts, stuff like that. I've done a few shorts. Just watching people's videos, them getting more into stuff. It's really cool to me. I have appreciation for anybody that will step outside of their circle or their comfort zone for an artistic project that they wouldn't have dreamed of doing before.
Oh yes, it's fun. This was actually stepping outside of my usual box too, so that was. I was very appreciative of writing this role for me, because like this is different than what I usually do. So like,
right. So I'm going to assume that you're not actually a serial killer.
Oh no.
I'm going to assume this. So I do want to ask. We are going to start getting into the Terrifier stuff now, guys.
Okay.
What effect does that have on your psyche, playing a character that's that? I mean, not just. I mean, a lot of people talk about darkness. Like, my favorite horror character is Michael Myers. I think that's a very dark and evil character. But a lot of the kill scenes and stuff aren't as brutal as some of the stuff that's in Terrifier, obviously. Yeah. What does that do to you? What does that do to your psyche a little bit while you're doing it, or while you're getting prepared? I mean, we saw what it did to Heath Ledger. I mean,
Yeah. Well, luckily I haven't gone that route. I haven't, because I don't go full method actor or anything like that. So,
mhm.
I think my co-stars are very appreciative of that too. That I'm not fully in character all the time. So I can
I'm,
just turn them off and turn them on as soon as they're like, okay, we're rolling. Then I'm like angry face and I'm art.
I'm
But
actually surprised to hear that because, and I saw that I've watched the behind the scenes, so I've seen that, but I'm
mhm.
surprised to hear you say that because your performances are so intense in those movies that I'm like, that's why I said I had to have you on when I started because I just watch your performances. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is freaking brilliant.
Thank you, thank you.
And I can't believe that you're not like that, like all the time. Like this is too good to not be real.
Yeah, I'm usually a goofball on set, either being a goofball or I'm just trying to like chill out and relax and just trying to conserve my energy because we have long film days. Like sometimes I've been on set for like 20 hours, so it's just like, and
So the
it's usually not fun situations too, or it's extremely cold because we film most of this during the winter
right.
up here in New York and Pennsylvania. So it's just like it gets
Uh,
cold.
oh yeah, when the two girls are walking down the street towards their car, you can
Hmm.
tell it's freaking cold. Like you could
Yeah.
tell.
Oh, I felt so sorry for them that night. Oh
And
boy, yeah, like
that's
that.
just,
That wasn't CGI'd breath that you see
yeah,
coming
that
out
was
of their
cold,
mouth.
man.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's like it was funny because all the behind the scenes stuff. Every time they would say cut, they would run and they had like the car that they were in. They would just turn the heat on and they'll just be in blankets and they're just like, oh,
So even even though it's sadistic, the fun side of art, the campy kind of let's make
hmm,
fun of things, because that's my favorite parts in it is when you're mocking your victim, like
yes.
when you put the needle in the girl, and then you're like, I yeah, I love that. I think it's great. I was like, that's the stuff I'm talking about. That's the, like, was that you or was that written in the script?
That a lot of that was me. That's just me just adding little funny little things to them and stuff like that because that's something I wanted to add more to it. It's like more the clowning nature, just because
Mm-hmm.
I know Mike Gianelli, who was the original art in All Hallows Eve, he was very good at just being scary.
Mm-hmm. Mike Jelly was very good
Mm-hmm.
in the role and very
Mm-hmm.
scary. And
Yep.
that actually leads me into my next question. When you took over the role of Art from Mike Gianelli, I saw Halsey before I saw Terrifier,
Mm-hmm.
so but I could right away tell that it was. I didn't even know your name yet when I saw Terrifier.
Right.
I right away knew that this was a different actor. I was like, they're both really good. Mike Gianelli is incredibly good, but I was like, this is a different person. This is a different actor, and I thought you were putting a better. And I don't want to insult Mr. Gianelli at all. I'm not
Oh
trying to
no,
do that,
he was
but I
great.
really liked your performance more. And maybe it's because too we didn't get to see as much of him,
Right.
but I thought your performance was so much more rounded. And so I wanted to ask you, what did you do to make that character your own? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
got to kind of keep somewhat of a balance so people realize it's the same guy, the same, but
Right.
you still have to make the role yours. So what was your thought process or what did you do to say, okay, this is mine now. I'm going to respect it, but I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I basically first did, of course, was go back and rewatch All Hallows Eve because I had seen it even before I tried out for art, and I loved the character. And I remember one of my thoughts that I had when I first watched All Hallows Eve was, "Oh my gosh, art is like an evil Mr. Bean," and I'm like,
I never
and
thought of that, but that's
yeah,
great. That's
and I'm
great.
like, because he's very mischievous and he's silent. I'm like, he's an evil Mr. Bean, and that's what I wanted to add more to it. It's like since he's a clown, I was like, what's going to make him stand out a little bit more from other horror villains? It's like having more of that the physicality behind him, the clowning aspect. So I wanted to because I have a lot of experience doing physical comedy.
Mhm.
And I had a great mentor when I toured with the Grinch for 5 years. I was the understudy for Stephen Carl, who was Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. And Stefan was very good with the theatricality, all the movements, especially with physical comedy. And he really fine tuned my skills. And I wanted to bring a lot of that because I was fresh from doing 5 years of Grinch. And so that was still really boom, 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 boom in my brain. And so I wanted to add that more that physicality to the character. That's why that's kind of like what Kane Hodder did with the breathing for Jason. he added his own physicality to the character. That's what I wanted to do with Art, and make him a little bit more, not cartoonish, but clownish, I guess you could say.
And that's exactly how I felt. Like it was clowny, and it's it's
but
funny
not
that
pure clown. Yeah, because that we don't want to go full on, like like the nose or like just pulling gags out.
When you're using the horn, it's terrifying. It's like
right
when you're trying to reach that door and you get the horn, it's like yeah, that's not the clown I want to see at my kid's birthday party.
Oh no, and see that's how I looked at it. It's like what Art is like the anti-clown. He's the reverse of what a clown's supposed to be. Clowns are supposed to entertain other people and bring joy and laughter to other people. Art brings pain and misery to other people for his own enjoyment. So everything he's doing is not to entertain others, it's to entertain himself. He finds so much fun and amusement in just doing horrible things to people. And that's what I really thought about with him. Like, okay, yeah, that's how I need to approach him. It's just like he's a messed up individual, so he's not really trying to be a clown to other people. He's just doing funny things that he
finds funny.
He likes to play with his food.
You know what? I was thinking about that too as I was watching it a few minutes ago. The food aspect. You didn't think that Art would be a cannibal until that very end. And I wonder if that was always written that way, or if it was just something they threw in, or
it was written like that. He was, I was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. Because when I never saw him as a cannibal, just a killer,
Yeah.
In fact, I've got like my own, and this is going to lead into I'll wait on that, and I'll ask you this question first.
Cool.
My friend here in the chat, Jay Super Awesome.
Hey.
He just said Terrifier needs to be. I usually don't acknowledge the audience till the end, but at least I try to keep them engaged. He said that the Terrifier needs to be a franchise, which I fully agree. I fully agree, and I feel that Art the Clown is the next horror icon. Thank you. There's actually already some iconic status there. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen them yourself, but what do you do when you come across somebody or you hear about somebody that has you, Art the Clown, tattooed on their body? Or like I've got tattoos of characters, I mean, like, that it's got to be a mind-blowing thing for you, right? I mean,
it really is. It's because, especially at first, like, the first tattoo that, Damien and I saw, we freaked out. We're like, holy crap. And I was at our very first convention, and Brad Thornton, we might be related, who knows, but he got a tattoo of me at the convention, and we're at an after party, and they just finished it up, and they come running over and like, Dave, he just got a tattoo of you. I'm like, what? It's like, this is insane. You want me to be part of your body for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I have a friend that's got you right in the center of Freddy, Jason, and all just right there.
Especially when stuff like that, it blows my mind. I'm like, just to even be associated with those legends is like, it's insane to me. It's still like just sinking in. I'm like, this is not real. This can't be. It's like, and it's not just like the tattoos. I mean, there's been a lot of street art of Art. No pun intended. And it's just like, there was like someone did a huge mural here in New York City on the side of a building of Art the Clown. And a bunch of us from the film went out one night and got our pictures made in front of it and everything, and went to the bar across the street. And it was so funny because afterwards we're going outside and we're walking down the street, and this a little group of not girls, but like women go by us, and I like one of our crew members is like, hey girls, do you know who this guy is? They're like, no. He's like, he's that guy on that wall over there. And they're like, no, he's not. No way. I was like, wow, they have no idea, do they?
Well,
like, I mean, guy's freaky on that wall. He's he's scary. He's like, you're too nice.
You yourself, you have very, you have very distinctive features. But Art's features, I know, I mean, like, they made you look like you were half, starved in the cheeks.
Yeah.
With the prosthetics and all that, and the extra hook on the nose.
Oh, Damien did a wonderful job on that. It's a full mask that is.
Oh, Damien did the mask?
Yeah, Damien does all the practical effects.
Wow, I didn't
He does
know that.
all of that, all the blood, everything, all the guts, everything you see. Damien does himself. He's a one-man army.
Paint over the top.
Yeah, it's a gelatin
wow.
mask, and it's he just glues it all to my face, and I love it because it allows for free range of movement. So even the wrinkles you see in my forehead show up through the mask, and I'm like, this is
kind of like what they did
fantastic.
with Jim Carrey and the Grinch.
Yeah,
like it allowed his facial features to be, just, and like you, and like when you do the teeth, and I'm going to show my teeth, which is a scary sight. So, like when you do the teeth thing, you're like, and it looks like your mouth is so much bigger than you probably. I mean, I don't know how big you can make your mouth, but it's so creepy and terrifying. Like, especially in that beginning scenes when you're in the pizza parlor, you're just looking at the girls. And then later on, you get that same look on your face, but you got blood in your teeth. And
well, the funny thing was that we didn't want the blood to be on my teeth there, but it's since we didn't film everything in order, we had just filmed the scene where Jenna knocks me in the stomach with the blood, and I spit out the blood afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like the night before we filmed that, so we couldn't get all the blood off the teeth. So we're like, oh crap! Oh well, maybe he was snacking on someone before he came in, covered them. So we'll just go off of that. Hopefully, we'll just play it off.
Pizza. That's why I didn't have the pizza.
Yeah, he was already full.
So there are, and we want Terrifier to be successful. Okay, as horror fans, we want horror movies to succeed, whether they're independent or mainstream, because we all have our opinions on every movie. As YouTubers, as horror fans, not everybody, and I'm just going to use this one as an example, not everybody loved Halloween 2018.
Right.
A lot of people did love Halloween 2018. I loved Halloween 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of whether you like them or not, like I hated the new Child's Play movie. I absolutely hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to succeed.
Right.
Because those movies being successful will ensure that more movies are made.
Yes.
And so for us at a more independent level or a smaller scale level, even though for a lot of us, Terrifier is just as big of a movie as those are. So we want Terrifier to succeed as well. And obviously it succeeded enough that you've become in the horror world a household name, and Art the Clown is becoming this new icon. And it didn't get a theater release that we know of, like a real wide theater release. But and I'm not sure if Terrifier 2 will get any theater release. Anything on that?
I don't know. I mean, if we did get a theater release, we'd probably have an NC-17 rating.
Yeah. But even at the streaming level or for a lot of us like myself, the physical media level, please, always with the physical media.
Yeah.
We want that to succeed, and hopefully the second one will succeed enough for us. And by the time you're in part 6, you're like making jokes and flying around on a broom.
That's what we're hoping. But I think we're at a good time for independent films because of this pandemic. It's because it's shown that streaming has become a very, very viable source for films to be released on now. Streaming
is fine with me. I'm not big on video on demand,
right?
Because I'm not going to pay $25 to watch a movie for 2 days and rent it for 2 days when I don't get the theater experience. I don't get the
right.
That's a little much for me. I'm just like, no, if you're going to do that, why don't you just put it on Blu-ray so I can buy it, own it, and let me take it home and watch it whenever I want. That's just
exactly.
Me. And I'm a collector though, so I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we that's the thing. We definitely want to release Terrifier 2 on physical as well. But it was but I think this is given a lot of independent films a chance to be seen now.
Mm-hmm.
And because everything's there's so much streaming out there. It's like you look at Willy's Wonderland that came out recently, or Psycho Goreman and stuff like that have been pretty successful.
Yeah. And have somebody like Nick Cage in your film doesn't hurt.
Oh no!
Got a big enough name that doesn't ever hurt.
It doesn't hurt at all.
And my point on this part is that even though there are, I think everybody in the horror world wants to see Terrifier 2 succeed. there are still, though, people that didn't like Terrifier in the horror world. Of course, there's always going to be people that don't like,
There's always
or there's been people that don't like certain aspects. And my next two questions are going to kind of focus on two of those aspects.
Cool.
Because there's something that a lot of people have brought up to me when I said I was going to do this interview, and I thought about myself. The first one is the way Terrifier ended, with Art the Clown getting caught by the cops, turns around, puts the gun in his mouth. I'm sure you've been asked this before, and I probably just haven't seen the interview. But, you know, everybody's okay, he's dead. Go to the morgue. Horror movie trope, you know, who knows if you're going to get a sequel. You got to have that last scare, you know.
Right.
You come back. However, what a lot of fans are concerned about is, and I'm sure Damien has it in mind, so I don't know how much you can talk on this, but we would like to know, or at least put our worries at ease, that it's going to be explained, your resurrection, in a way that will make sense with the reality of what the real feel of this movie. Can you talk on that at all? Are you allowed to?
Yeah, I can talk on the funny thing is, like, in the original script, that scene wasn't even in it with the morgue scene. It basically ended with, you know, Victoria, well, Art killing himself, and it being revealed that Victoria is the one that was at the very beginning of the film being interviewed, and there was no morgue scene. And it wasn't until after we did a rough cut showing at the Telluride Horror Festival or something like that back in 2016 that people were like, they wanted something else there. They wanted a good coda to the end of the movie. Like, well, is there? So we might as well put something in to lead into a sequence. They're like, is there going to be another one? And that was the question. It's like, well, we might as well put something in there to, like, okay, yeah, he's not necessarily dead yet, you know. So we added that scene in there. As for, like, a reason why he's resurrected, yeah, we do explain it, but we don't flat out just explain it. We just infer a lot about what's going on. We'll probably explain it more in part 3.
I know there's been a lot of theories. There's been a lot of fan theories. My particular one that I like to think is one I heard that when he shoots himself, he actually shoots a blank. And that he had a squib on top of his head that would go off so they would think he was dead.
Oh, that's fun.
Because like myself, and I'll take it. I'm one of those people that, like, when the new Star Wars movies came out, everybody has their expectations. And then when it didn't do what they wanted it to do, they got all pissy. I'm not like that. I'm like, just give me what you got, and I'll take it one way or the other. I may not always like it, but I'm going to take it. So, like, I wanted to, and this is just for me, you know, I would like it to stay grounded. I would like to keep it in that realistic world that it's in. Some people are thinking, oh, it's going to be this supernatural thing, and all. I don't know, but however it's explained, I do have confidence in Damien's script writing, because I've liked what he's done so far. That I'm pretty sure it will be good. So it's good to hear that it will be somewhat explained.
I will, you know, put that theory to rest. Know that he did not use a squib. That was, he did shoot his brains out. That, you know, you see the exit wound, of course, and the morgue scene and stuff like that. So we do address that, of course. But yeah, it's like, and I kind of like that he did that too, because it's like he went out on his own terms. And I kind of look at it like he didn't know that he was going to come back. He was just like, okay, fine. You guys are not taking me alive. I'm not giving you the satisfaction of, you know, catching me. I'm going out on my own terms. Boom. That's it. Then he comes back and he's like, oh, this is unexpected. All right. You know, let's party.
Well, see, they did kind of show those, like, or when he shot it, you do see, like, the not crucifix, Catholic, rosary.
Right.
The rosary's there, and there's some religious imagery. So you wonder, like, well, and then the lights start going, you know, and everything, and, you know, that shows all that. So you're like, okay, well, maybe there's something going on here.
Oh yes, there definitely is a supernatural element. Yeah,
and that's
we don't want to go crazy with the super. We still want to base it in, like, grounded, like, type of reality situation per se, but there definitely is a supernatural element to it now. But he's not, like, just warping around and crazy stuff like that. He's still Art, just like he was in the first one. I just
It's
think
kind of like,
he's a little stronger now and a lot more confident. I would say a little bit more cocky because like, wow, I can't be hurt.
kind of like Michael Myers. The difference between the end of Halloween 1 and Halloween 2.
Yeah.
He gets shot 6 times, but then he disappears, and he's back. And then at the end of Halloween 2 into Halloween 4, he's back. He's obviously stronger. There's some you can't kill the evil. That's the whole point of horror movies, is showing that you can never kill the evil. You just have to work your way around the evil.
Yes.
So, and I'm fine with that completely. It's all, I just think as long as it works, it works.
Yeah. We found a way to make it work. Yeah, I wish I could say more because it's kind of fun what we have planned for it.
I didn't actually have this as a scheduled question, but let me just ask you, because I know things are up in the air. Do you have a rough release date of when we might be seeing Terrifier 2?
Yeah, we're hoping by Halloween. Yeah,
Halloween? That'd be great.
Yeah, that's our goal, is by Halloween. I mean, originally wanted to release it by Halloween last year, but of obvious things. But because Damien's editing right now, and then after that, we got to get it, shop around to distribution and see who wants to pick us up or something like that. I don't think it's going to be as challenging as it was the first time, because now we're like a proven commodity that has a big, huge fan base. So I think whoever wouldn't pick us up is a fool. I was like, do you not want to make money?
Yeah, I support a couple of independent, really support a couple of independent horror companies, and I push them. Like a couple weeks from now, we're doing Wild Eye Week, which is Wild Eye Independent. They distribute horror films, and so it's always good to see the independent companies get good distribution out there. If you can get Terrifier into Walmart's without being cut down and edited down, that'd be a good thing. So.
Oh yeah, because we don't want to cut what we filmed, because I mean it's definitely. We didn't pull any punches on part 2 when it came to the gore and violence and stuff like that. So it's just as, if not more, than the first film.
That's great.
So we didn't want to go back.
When Terrifier first came out, it was hard, honestly, to get on physical media for a while. And there was times where I was looking around, I couldn't find it anywhere. And when I did get on eBay to get a physical copy, I was looking at 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 bucks.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was going for that much. So you know what I did? I went to Redbox and bought it for $6 on Redbox. And then just on, the DVD and the little thing. But then I ended up getting it not too long back on Hamilton Book again on Blu-ray. So it still was $20. But that's the next thing that I want to lead into is there were a lot of detractors, and I'm not one of them, because I thought it was great, and I have my own thoughts on why it was done, and which you can correct or agree or whatever. A lot of people felt that when Art pulled out the gun, it wasn't right, not because they're anti-gun or anything, but because it's a slasher movie and slashers aren't supposed to use guns. And
these people don't know slasher movies then.
My theory was that, Myers he stabbed the gun through somebody.
Maniac, Scream.
Oh yeah, there's so many. But a lot of people feel that it's not slasheric or whatever you want to call it. Myself personally, I feel like when Art pulls out the gun, like he has all this big bag full of toys that he's using, right?
Right.
But he pulled out the gun because he was in trouble. He pulled out the gun as that's his self-defense weapon.
Right.
But he went to town on the girl with it, unloading it. But initially it's because she was getting the better of him. So he pulled out his ace and bam, and it turned the table. That was my thought.
Yes.
So
that's dead on. That's exactly it.
That say that it's not right. I mean,
no, that's the thing. It shows how unpredictable the character is, and he's willing to do whatever to win. And he's not extremely happy to be using the gun in that situation. You look at that kill versus all the other kills. He was not happy. He was kind of pissed. But that was his contingency plan. It's like he's determined to win no matter what. I think people are probably more expecting him to pull out like a flower that shoots acid or something like that. They weren't expecting a gun to come out. But I will also say that it's a gun used in a slasher film, but he uses it as a slasher would use it.
Mhm.
He doesn't just 2 shots to the head, you're dead type of thing.
Mhm.
He maims her at first to incapacitate her, so she's limping
And then he
around.
tortured her with it.
And then he mutilates her. He doesn't just shoot her like once in the head and boom, dead. No, he empties a whole entire freaking clip and just
Mhm.
blasts away her face with it. It's
Great makeup effects too, by the way.
oh yeah,
So
yeah.
good.
It was so cool to see how that was done too. He just made a whole replica of her face and just all the stuff to it. It was, but that's the thing. It's like if he uses a gun, he's not going to use it just normally. He's going to do something with it that's a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people were like, "Man, you got to ask him about the gun. Why? Why
Yeah.
did they have a gun?" I've always said that it was fine.
Oh yeah.
I've like you said, in so many movies, Maniac is the best example because
Yeah.
that is like the best kill in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
When just like that head that Tom Savini put together with all the meat and the fruit and the nasty
Yes.
stuff,
Oh, it's insane. And that's it's like when we filmed this, I that night we filmed it, I commented, I was like, we're gonna piss off so many people, and I freaking love it because no one's gonna see this coming. We're pulling a psycho here too because we're killing
Mhm.
off whoever I think is the female lead halfway through the movie.
Yeah, and then when it transfers to Victoria. Yes.
Yeah, and so it's like we're gonna piss off and surprise so many people, and that was one of the most fun reactions to see when we did the first big screening of it at Lincoln Center here in New York. Was the different reactions that all happened at the same time. You had people screamed in terror. You had people scream because they were like, "What the fuck?" You had people just start laughing their heads off, and all happened all at the same time. So you had so many reactions, different types of reactions happening at the same time, and I'm like, that made me so happy to see that happen.
Yeah.
I love that moment.
John Cena, the wrestler, says, that it's not what they say, it's how they're saying it.
Yes.
If you can get a reaction, whether it's a love, a hate, or anything, you're doing your job right, one way or the other.
Yeah, because you're affecting people. They're not bored. You did something to evoke some kind of emotion out of them other than boredom. It's like when there was another screening that I went to, and Catherine, who plays Dawn, was sitting next to me, and it was during her kill scene, and we saw these two. It was for a college, and we saw these two girls just get up and walk out.
Oh,
and they
yeah.
just couldn't handle it, and Catherine and I just turned to each other and high-fived each other. I'm like, yes. It's like most people would be pissed off that people walked out of their film. Like, no, we got to them. We got to them. They couldn't handle it. That meant we affected them somehow. That what we did was enough to, evoke that kind of response out of them, where they're like, we can't handle it. And I understand some people can't handle these type of movies.
Right. Yeah,
they're not for everybody.
No, they're not. Then those of us that are sick enough and twisted enough to love them,
Yeah. Like if my mom was still alive, she would not see it because she could not. She thought The Fall of the House of Usher was the scariest movie she had ever seen.
My mom won't watch it either. She would be like, no, just no. But it's funny too, because the people that love this stuff, that love this gore and this, are usually 90% of the time like the best people, the nicest.
They really are. They really are, because that's escapism for them. It's just like because they understand this is not real. They're not getting like, oh yeah, this is what I want to have. I'm gonna do this. This is giving me ideas. No, my God, I would say 99.9% of these people that enjoy these type of movies are the most down to earth, cool, caring, sweet people that you can meet.
And that 1% of people that do get that kind of feeling or whatever, those people obviously have some sort of mental instability.
Yeah, a film's not going to push them over the line.
They should have been watching the film anyways,
Exactly. But, they already have those tendencies to them anyway.
So in Terrifier 2, are we going to get an Art the Clown backstory? Are we going to see the alter ego? I also have my own theory on that too, and it's just my kind of like Art the Clown, when he's not Art the Clown, when he's not painted up, he's just some guy, just some normal guy who's probably got a wife and kids, and he's like, yeah, whatever. But then that Halloween comes, and But I mean, so are we gonna get anything?
We'll have a little bit in there. We don't want to totally just shoot our load all at once, because I think having a bit of mystery behind the character makes it more interesting.
You have to have a
The-
little bit of mystery, yeah.
Yeah, we have some fun little clues, I guess, because Damien originally had a whole origin that we were going to film for part two, but it would have just made the movie like a lot longer. And he's like, yeah, we'll put this possibly in part three, but it's we still want to leave a lot of mystery to the character because I would say this film is more of like a I kind of look at like Terrifier is some ways kind of Art's origin in some ways too, where it's like you see how he really becomes art as opposed to just art clown. He's truly becomes himself at the end of it with the to the back of the head. I think that just puts him on a new level when he comes back. But part two is it's more concerned about the who's going to be able to go up against him now. Who's going to be able to counter this force of destructive nature that's been unleashed?
So part one is our alien, and part two is going to be aliens. So much. To say.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's we all rule of horror: bigger, badder, bloodier. I mean.
Yep. That's what we're doing. We're swinging for the fences, and I know that's something a lot of people, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, and I know some grievances people had with the first film was like there wasn't a lot of character development, there wasn't a lot of plot, and we're making up for that in spades in part two, especially.
And that's fine, but I really didn't feel that the first one needed it.
Oh no, I don't either, because I looked at it.
It was just fun, and it was like
it's a survival story. It's really akin to The Killing Joke, where it's the whole point of it is just showing how one bad day can reduce a sane, rational-minded person to lunacy, and that's what he does to Victoria. He breaks her, and she becomes the killer by the end.
She becomes a. I wonder. I'm wondering if she's going to show up. Are we going to see a partnership? Are we going to, who knows what will happen there? Or is she just another? Maybe we'll get an offshoot movie, a Victoria movie. Who knows? I mean,
we'll see. We have some ideas. We have some fun ideas for Victoria. We're definitely not done with Victoria.
I'm glad to hear that a part three is already in the mind, at least. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was always Damien's intention, was to have at least a trilogy.
That's awesome. Which we love, because, like I said, the best. And once again, this is not in any way or form a slam to Damien at all. All Hallows Eve, the best segments in that are the Terrifier and Art the Clown segments. So that's the ones that that's what I want to watch. There are times where I've watched Terrifier, but I want to watch All Hallows Eve first, but I just skip the other segments and watch the Art parts and then go to Terrifier.
That's so funny, because Art wasn't originally supposed to be a main character. He was just supposed to be like one of the minions of that cult. And it's just like, and it just people latched onto the character. They're like, we want to see more of this guy.
Yeah, that's what I read too. Is that he didn't even have real intentions of bringing that in. He had done a couple shorts about Art already, and then he put those in and filmed some other stuff for the Terrifier segment around it.
I will say though that like the female protagonist in Terrifier 2, Sienna, is a character that Damien has wanted to bring to life for a long time.
Right.
This character is a very Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor type of character, which I love about her. So it's just like, and I think it's going to be a character a lot of horror fans will be able to identify with as well. So it's not going to just your typical pretty damsel in distress type of character. She's got a lot of depth to her, and he's really spent a lot of good time in this movie, fleshing her character out, especially with her relationship to her family and stuff like that, which I love it. It's not just Art's movie; it's also her movie as well.
Right. And see, you mentioned that you've heard some criticisms on the character development. One of the criticisms that I've heard a lot of that I don't really agree with, because I think they did their parts great, was the acting of our two main girls at the beginning of the film, Dawn, and I can never remember the other one's name.
Tara.
Even though I just watched it, Tara. A lot of people thought, oh man, it's superficial acting. I was like, well, that's what they are. Their characters are. They're superficial, kind of like just young girls that are more into their online Snapchat accounts than they are real life. That's kind of what they were doing.
Yeah.
I think they did a fine job. And what I really liked is during Dawn's death scene, Okay, because you go from the parts where you're cutting the dummy or the whatever it is, you're cutting that, and then they go from that, and then they cut to her face. Okay, one, I don't know if she was while you were standing there and she's acting around, but she's upside down.
Yep.
She's practically nude.
Yep.
And she's got tape across her mouth, and she's having to use her eyes right before you start cutting and right as soon as you start cutting. And her eyes and her, just that little, to convey the terror and the pain she's in. And I thought she did a great job in that.
Oh, yeah. And she was really doing that. She was literally upside down naked, except for a little thong that she was wearing for her own modesty there.
Right.
But it's just like, that was, and it was, I will say that she went through hell for that because it was also 20 degrees in that room that night.
Yeah, I mean, it looked uncomfortable as hell.
Oh, and the blood would go up in her nose sometimes go into her eyes, and it's because it's got some dish soap in there it's Damien's special concoction, so it stings like a mother when you get that stuff in your eyes. It's just like, it was not fun for her to do at all. But she's
choking, you got to stop and lift her up so she don't choke out.
And we only did it. We would only film 30 seconds at a time because it's so dangerous to help do that to someone. So it was very stressful because we only have a few seconds, so let's get these reactions as quickly as we can and swing her back up, let her rest, and swing her back down and do it again and again and again. And I was like, oh my God, I consider her the MVP of the film. She did hell for
that scene, man. When my best friend, we've been best friends since we were children. He does some videos with me. He goes, because of his work and stuff, he doesn't like to show his true face and his identity and whatnot. But he goes under the name Bill. And when we watched this movie together to review it, which I reviewed it like a couple years ago, when I said, dude, this movie, it's going to blow you away. You're going to, and we got to that scene. He just jumped up in his chair and was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And
because you're so used to,
very desensitized,
Yeah. Oh, it's because you're so used to, like, when you have a kill like that happen in a movie, it cuts away and all you see is the aftermath, maybe.
Right.
You don't actually see the kill happen. It's just like, whoa. And when I first read the script, Damien had all that, scripted out, and I was like, and I just assumed that was just for, our, view. So he's like, okay, this is what's happening. This is what happens at the scene. And I was like, so it's going to cut away. He's like, oh, no, we're going to film all of that. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah, you show it going right through her butt and everything, right down to, into her skull. And then I love that how when you get to the skull, you can see it on your face. How it's like, okay, it's getting harder to saw now.
Yeah. Oh, we did so many different variations too. Like we're somewhere else being a little bit more comedic, where I'm getting tired. I'm like, oh God, okay, I'm back into it. And it was just like we had a lot, especially when I was being able to just use the actual dummy that we had, because I got to actually saw through that thing. So we didn't have to worry about Catherine at that point. It was just a dummy, so I could do a lot more stuff that way and have more fun with it instead of being, oh God, is she okay?
It looked incredibly real though. It looks incredibly real.
That was molded off of her. Poor thing also got stuck in the mold too. So they almost had to take her to the ER when they were making it. They had to slowly pry her out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very, like I said, she went through all kinds of hell for that. But, she was totally committed to it, didn't complain, because she knew what that scene was going to be. She knew. She was like, this is going to be a classic scene that people are always going to talk about from now on. This is going to make this scene stand out. And we had people that wanted, like, when we're shopping for distribution the first time, we had companies that wanted to put us in theaters nationwide, but they wanted to cut up most of that scene out. And Damien was like, absolutely not. This needs to be seen as is. There's a reason for this. Trust me on this. And people are like, no, it's too violent. He's like, nope. You're not going to have it. You are not going to cut this scene if you want me to, if you want to do business with me. And I'm glad he stuck to his guns like that.
Yeah, so are all the fans. Thank you very much.
Yeah, because he's a true horror fan himself. He's been watching horror films since he was 3 years old. He's got like an encyclopedic knowledge of horror films. It's crazy. And so he knows what the fans want to see. He knows they're into that's why people go to the slashers. They're there for the kills.
There sometimes, like Cody H&S Collectibles just said, that sometimes leaving it to the imagination, not showing a lot of blood, that can work too.
Oh yeah.
But in my own observations, there is a special. I mean, it takes somebody with the right kind of talent to do that.
Yeah.
Like it took John Carpenter to do that. Like I haven't seen a lot of directors, and I'm not any Toby Hooper, even Wes Craven, where Wes Craven somewhat because of the House on the Left. Like people go through that movie feeling like they just witnessed a full out rape, when in reality, if you really watch it, all he does is lay on top of her.
Yeah.
But they go through it and it's in their mind. So, I mean, but it does take a certain type. Some people can do that. Some people can't do that. It's just, like you're right. For most people want to see the blood and guts.
Yeah. Well, I will say in part 2, you'll definitely be seeing a lot more blood and guts. It's like because we took that as a challenge for ourselves, because like when we did this, when it released, we saw the feedback we're getting, like, oh man, did we set the bar too high for us now? It's like, how are we going to surpass that? And we took that as a challenge. It's like, it's not that we're not doing the same type of kill, but I will say that the big kill that we have in the movie, we have a few, but like I know 2 of them especially are very violent kills. It will probably get a lot of hate from people on it because how violent they are. I mean, they're vicious, mean kills.
Not over here. We'll take it. We'll
But I know there will be some people that are like, "Oh, this is horrible what you're doing here. I cannot believe you're showing this." But we're like, why not? This is, he's a horrible, evil person. This shows how truly horrible and depraved this guy is. And that's what is, so it's the one we filmed right before Christmas was originally not written the way we filmed it. It was a lot tamer. And we started filming it right before we had to go on the lockdown for the pandemic. And Damien just went back and looked at what we had already filmed, and he's like, I want to change this. If we're gonna try to top the film, the first film with the kill, we might as well just go all out for this. So let's do it. And so he reworked the scene and added a lot more elements because he had the time, because the lockdown. So he was able to take the time to build some really cool prosthetics for it. Nice. There's some even cool puppetry that's done in this, which is like, wow, you would not know it's a puppet. Wow. But it's just like it's fantastic, and it's if there's any CG that's used in it, it would be very, very minimalistic, just to like enhance, because I don't think you need to rely on CG. I would say like 99% of this scene is all practical effects, and it's vicious and it keeps going.
CG is another one of those things that CGI is another one of those things that, if it's not done right, it makes the scene look off. And
it does.
I mean, there are some movies that, like Scream 4, for example. I had no idea that the knives were all CGI.
Wow.
Nobody knew that the knives were CGI. All the blades were fake. They were CGI.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't, but they did.
We don't CGI our knives.
Nobody knew. It was done really well. So
wow. But when you see it done really bad, I mean, like I always think of that in It Chapter 2 with the old lady running out. I was like, it took me out of it.
I liked the CGI in It Chapter 2. I've heard people say that, but I liked it.
But there are moments where the CGI works really well, and you're like, of course, like when you have the giant Paul Bunyan attacking. Of course, you got to do that with CGI, because even if you did that with an animatronic, it would not look nearly as good. You couldn't get the range of how that stilted look. The old back in the day when they did the stop motion type of stuff. So or like when Pennywise becomes a big spider creature and stuff like that. That's where you got to use CGI. I totally understand that, but like when you can actually do stuff with the process, because I look back at Terminator 2. There are things that people think are CG, and it's not. It's an actual practical effect, and it's like, wow, like when the T-1000, like it's blowing apart, and he's like just in different pieces, but still to get that was practical. That was a practical effect. I'm like, holy crap! Is you can if you have capable people doing practical effects, you can do amazing things. Like my favorite, werewolf transformation ever in a movie is all done with practical effects. And American Werewolf in London. I'm like that. You will never beat that transformation scene with CG. It's just those
are all. I'm fully on board with the practical over the CGI.
Yeah,
like I said, CGI I don't mind it, especially in sci-fi monster movies, Godzilla versus Kong, that kind.
Yeah.
But for CG to be in horror, it needs to be done really well, or else you get Tremors too, where you're getting weird looking creatures that don't look right. And
or
I will say
blood
Tremors 5
splatters.
was better.
The blood splat, fake blood really pisses me off. Like when it's like a blood spurt or something like that, or like when they had the blood pull out on someone's chest on their shirt because they just don't want to have to keep on using new shirts and stuff. I'm like, it just looks fake. It's like I can tell fake blood immediately when I see it.
I've had to use some digital blood on some of my videos, but I'm a YouTuber. I'm not a
I mean, it's dealing with fake blood. It's not necessarily the most fun thing in the world, but it looks good. And I look at like the Evil Dead series, and there's this one episode where basically Bruce is just killing someone, and he's just got this constant geyser of blood just blasting him in the face, and it's like, that would not look nearly as good with CG, and you would not be getting the reactions that you're getting from Bruce.
That's one thing I love about that franchise was they always went with the practical effects, and
oh yeah,
I mean, it was disgusting and it was great, and
Oh, I would love to see Damien and like Raimi work together. I think they would make a really good team.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
The silent film, of course, is a thing of very much the past. So, and with actors these days, even classical trained actors are trained on things like Shakespeare. They're trained on great lines and great words and things like that. So to act without speaking completely is a much harder thing than it would have been 80, 100 years ago when we were doing silent films.
Correct.
And it's much harder to convey emotion, pain, just about anything without that verbalization. So when I watch you in Terrifier, for example, when you get stabbed, and I can see no sound coming out, no scream, no nothing, just absolute. But how did you do that? Because I could see how it hurt. Yeah. Did you have somebody actually stab you so you would know what it felt like, so you would know what to do with your mouth again?
No, but I what you see is what was actually filmed. They didn't edit out any of the sound or anything like that. I did that without screaming.
I'm assuming you weren't actually getting stabbed. So how did you get that? How did you? Because that's hard to do. That's hard to.
I just intuitively knew how to do it, I guess. I just did it. It's just
Have you had any sort of formal mime training or anything?
I've never had really formal mime training, but it's just like, as you said, a lot of actors, they learn from Shakespeare and everything. I mean, I read Shakespeare, but my learning really came from watching silent films. I love physical actors. It's funny you mentioned, because last night I literally just watched Chaplin for my first time, the Robert Downey Jr. movie, and it's fantastic. I'm
very good film.
Oh, I totally see why he got so many accolades for it. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so good in that. I didn't realize he was that physical of an actor too. I was like, oh my god, he's so good. But my family just gave me that appreciation for those type of films. Like I was watching them as an early age. I was watching Chaplin and Keaton and Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello and Three Stooges at an early age. My aunt gifted me probably one of the best gifts I've ever gotten. She gifted me the box set of Mr. Bean videos when I was a teenager. And I sat there and I would watch those over and over and over and over and over and over and over, because I loved what he did. I loved that he could tell a whole story just with his face and his body. He didn't have to say anything. And I think there's a beauty behind that because it translates worldwide. It beats down every language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, really cool. And I had always wanted to play a character like that. I love, I love Doug Jones. I love his style. I love, Jim Carrey. These are the guys I grew up watching and idolizing. That's who I learned from. I would watch them, and I would do a lot of children's theater growing up. And I understood that children are more into physical humor than they are verbal humor. And so I would take what I watched and I would try to apply that to what I did on stage, and that's where I was able to really fine-tune things and workshop things. I was always playing with things, and I'm still like that to this day. I will sit there and just watch just basic hand movements or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I got to remember this, and this is giving me ideas for this and this, and that's what I did with, and that's why I wanted to bring that into art. I was like, I wanted to bring that art form back in a way, but do something creative with it. And I thought that was like, this is a cool way to do it. It was like bring this kind of physical comedy back, but with a villain, with a cold-blooded killer. I mean, that's fun to do.
Yeah, we actually talked about that when my buddy and I were where we go through the Universal film, the old Universal Monsters, and
Lon
we
Chaney.
talked about how the acting back then was not. I'm not going to say better, but so much more. Like actors nowadays have so many things to help them.
Right.
They have CGI, they have practical effects, they have all this stuff. Whereas like Boris Karloff had to scare you with the look.
Yeah.
When the Frankenstein monster and Dr. Frankenstein are looking at each other through that the wheel thing that that turns the windmill. That's just those looks in their eyes, those scenes. They had to portray everything with just the looks, and it was so good. And you felt, or when he's staring at you in the Mummy, and it's just that close up on his face.
Yeah,
he doesn't say a word, but you're to the audiences of that time, it was terrifying.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Now, I mean, these days it's not to us, but we've got so much things that terrify us. But it's it really is it's an amazing gift. It's an amazing talent. I'm very grateful that you have it, because
thank you.
It would make the movie a lot less. It would make the character a lot less effective, in my opinion. Because, like I said, my favorite parts of art is when he was doing stuff like that. Like when you got you cut the lady's chest off and you're wearing her breasts on, and you got the hair on, and he's just kind of doing his thing. Or even when you're on the tricycle and you're going around, you're like la 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 la. Like it's like those kind of things where there's no sound, you're not making a sound, but that right there, it made me laugh. In the middle of all this horror, it made me laugh. I was like, that's awesome.
It was fun to do. I love it. It's just pure joy for me.
Yeah.
But I attribute a lot of that to stage work, and I think that's why back then those actors that were doing that, because before they were doing it on screen, they were doing it on stage.
Right.
So many of them were vaudevillian actors, and they were used to performing for the audience, so that of course their gestures were bigger because they had to reach to the back of the house.
You actually had to, like, if there was a scene that calls for you to punch somebody, you had to actually punch them.
Yeah.
And in theater, where you don't do that in movies, but you did in theater.
Oh, just I look at the stunts that Buster Keaton would pull off. Just those things that now they would be CG and all that kind of stuff, or they were doing a lot of wire work. He literally did these things. He literally had a house that fell, and the window, he just knew precisely where he had to stand so that thing would fall right around him. If he was like a few inches off, he would be dead. It's like, that's insane. Or like there's this one where he's running across rooftops trying to get away from police officers. He jumps and grabs hold of a railway guard.
The thing, and then it falls.
Yeah, and rides it down and plops in the back of the car while the car's driving by. I'm like, holy crap! Or there's another one where
it be timed perfectly, and
but the one that really impressed me, because it wasn't a big scene like that, but it was this scene where he and this other guy in a room, and he's trying to get away from the guy. They're having a fight, and the guy bends over, and Buster jumps off the guy's back and springboards through the little opening above the door, the little window that you sometimes see above doors, and he jumps through it effortlessly, just whoop, right through the small little opening. And it's just like insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy how far filming has come, but also how certain talents have to be maintained, or else because if those art forms are truly ever lost, it's something we're never going to get back, and it's something that will be a detriment. Because that's why I'm grateful for things like the Library of Congress that you know they've secured things like Dracula and Frankenstein and aliens and all the. So 200-300 years from now, when the technology is, I mean, we're way above what, like they say, everything that happened they had in the original Star Trek. We've already passed that practically, you know, for the most part, you know, most of the stuff. So even when we're totally past all of that stuff, you can still look back and see these pieces of art that represented a period of time that, you know, it's not going to be lost. And I wish that for all film. I wish all films would be preserved that way.
Oh, me too. I mean, because there's some, you go back and look at some of these older films, like the musical dance numbers that they would have in films.
Gene Kelly singing in the rain. I was just watching.
Oh my gosh, make them laugh. The scene with Donald O'Connor, that is like when he's just walking up the walls and doing the flips, and it's
great physical stuff.
It's amazing to watch because you don't see that in movies anymore. You don't see that kind of physicality. You don't see those grandiose dance production numbers like that anymore. I miss them.
Right.
I can't remember what movie it was, but this amazing dance number done by these two guys, and they did it unrehearsed in one take. And they're like dancing around the band. They're doing this whole routine going down a staircase where they're just landing in splits and flying back up and landing in a split and flying back. It's unbelievable. And to know that they did that in one take and they didn't rehearse it really beforehand, I'm like, that's true talent. Like back then, like those performers were true performers.
Yeah.
And it's like I hate that, you know, you don't really see that as much in films anymore. It's oh man, it's like the Marx Brothers when they would do the musical numbers where like Chico playing the piano. It was like there's a theatricality to it all, and Harpo, you know, he's like playing the harp. He's actually playing the harp, but then he's also eating an apple and peeling the apple through the strings on the harp, and then Groucho's doing this little dance number. It's so entertaining to watch. I love it. I can, it's like if one of those type of movies is on, I will watch it. I don't care how many times I was seeing it because it's pure entertainment.
As much as I love horror, I'm a lover of cinema, and I love stuff like that. Absolute pure talent. People could say whatever they want, but I'll sit there and I will watch Singing in the Rain. I'll watch Sound of Music. I'll watch for the talent that these people had to do the things they did. You know, even like, and they kind of show that a little too in the Singing in the Rain, because the character in that, Don Lockwood, his first roles were as stuntmen. You know, he came in and he's like, you know, showing how they would have to jump backwards over the bar and, you know, get punched in the face and, you know, and all this stuff. And like you said, it was real back then.
Yeah.
You know, there were some, I've heard of things where they didn't know what they were going to do, you know. People, I was talking to an actor who said that there's a scene where he has to jump basically off the cliff. And he didn't know that, or the girl that he was with didn't know that he was going to grab her and jump with her. And he literally grabbed her and jumped off the cliff. You know, she didn't know that was going to happen.
Wow.
And it's, you know, but it was, and it got the reaction that the actor wanted, was her shock and terror, you know, like, you know, and it worked. And, you know, so.
Also, it reminded me of, like, you know, the Hans Gruber moment in Die Hard, where they drop Alan Rickman. They told him they were going to do it on 3, and they did it on 1. So that look of just terror and surprise on his face is real.
Yeah.
When he falls, it's so great. I love those kind of things. But it's like but these are the things where I have such an appreciation for stunt actors. I think they are like unsung heroes of movies, stunt doubles and all that. It's like the things that we had some great stunt doubles for Terrifier 2 that were just absolutely phenomenal. It was just like, wow.
And it's funny. Earlier in the interview earlier, you mentioned Kane Hodder
Mhm.
and his physical performance, and it's so funny because I don't like Kane Hodder as Jason,
Yeah.
and it's his physicality, the way he manifests his version of Jason, physical, that I didn't like. I mean, he's a breathing zombie. What's up with that?
Yeah.
But like George P. Wilbur, on the other hand, or not George P. Wilbur. Oh man, I'm terrible with names. I really
I
am.
understand.
I
I'm the same
know
way.
them all, and they're always right here, but I just forget them.
Yes.
Part 6.
Okay.
He's my favorite Jason, except for now. I love Derek Mears. I think Derek Mears was terrific.
Mhm.
He was an ex-Marine. Okay, turned stuntman. They bring him in. They don't even bring him in to film. They see him at a party or something. They're like, "That's Jason." They bring
Yeah.
him in, and where he goes, he's got that fence like spear like rod in his hand, and he
Right.
crashes it through that couple's window. And if you watch, he almost actually stabbed her. And they talk about this behind the scenes because his military training kind of like kicked in, and he followed his target with it, and you could
Oh
see it
yeah.
on film. So it was like, to me, that was like to see those kind of, I don't know if the word is method acting, but just that, that intensity of getting into your character and really just going for it.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing. And I respect, yes, I know the guys are all telling me to leave Kane Hodder alone. I respect his drive for the film. I respect his love for the films. I just personally don't like his performance as much as other people's.
That's okay.
But I like him in a lot of other things where he's not playing Jason.
Yeah. Victor Crowley. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's great, Victor Crowley.
Oh
And
my God. Like one of my favorite
so,
kills I've ever seen in a movie is the whole face rip thing. It's just like,
oh, dude, that was so cool.
oh,
So cool.
so good.
I'm out of questions, formal questions, anyways. I will now, if it's okay with you, I will turn it over to the chat.
Sure.
And if any of you guys have questions out there for Mr. Thornton, throw them in the chat. And in the meantime, we'll just bullshit until we forget one.
Okay. Bullshit, 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 bullshit. Hubbub, 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 hubbub.
Oh, man. There's another one that's great with physical acting, Mel Brooks films.
Oh, my God, yes.
Monty Python, all the physical stuff they had to do.
Oh, my gosh, yes. I mean, that's the stuff I grew up on. So it's just like, my background's comedy. It's like, that's funny. It's like, Damien's background is horror. My background is comedy. I think that's why we work so well together. We bring our skill sets together and found a way to make them work in harmony with each other.
Yeah. CJ Graham, thank you.
CJ. Oh yeah, of course, CJ. Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. He's been my favorite Jason. I got a poster of him right there.
Yes.
I can't remember his name.
Oh, CJ, of course. I'm friends with CJ. I'll have to ask him about that with the spear. I didn't know that. So I'm like,
supposedly that's what they talked about in the behind the scenes, was that his military training kicked in. And
oh wow, I bet he was like,
literally
oh God, because CJ is the biggest teddy bear. He is the sweetest guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just who knows?
No, actually,
I love CJ.
When I've done certain big milestones for the channel, like my 500 subscribers, my 1,000 subscribers, I wanted to go all out with these contests because I wanted to give back to the people and give some good prizes. One of the things I was able to get was a mask. I've actually ordered now 4 different masks that are signed by CJ Graham, Kane Hodder, James Jude Courtney, different these things. And I've never once been able to get one for myself. I've always given them away.
Aw, one day.
Yeah, I will. I got a good connection with the guy that does these through horrorautographs.com. He goes and he, got your certificate authenticity, and he's also got pictures of the people signing them, and stuff.
Okay.
And it's cool, but it's just so. Yeah, one of these days, he usually gives me a good deal when I order a couple for the contest. So one of these days, I'm going to throw in one for myself.
Definitely, you got to treat yourself.
I've got masks, just not autographed ones.
I'm weird too because I don't usually get autographs of people and stuff like that. I'm just happy just having a conversation with someone.
My friend Jason's like that. I like to get the autograph sometimes too, but my best experience at a con, like I had to pay. Okay, Albuquerque Comic Con #1, the first Albuquerque Comic Con. Which if you ever get to come to an Albuquerque Comic Con, please come. I will be at your table.
Cool.
The big draw for the first Albuquerque Comic Con was they had the guys from Boondock Saints.
Oh yeah.
And this, right when Walking Dead was first about to start or just starting. So what's his name? Norman Reedus wasn't a big giant. I mean, he was big for people that knew Boondock Saints and Blade 2, but he wasn't like the megastar he is now, you know. Right. And I had to pay, what was it, $40 or $60 per to just go down the thing to have them sign something and talk to him for 2 seconds. You know, but it was really cool because I took a comic book, a Boondock Saints comic book to get signed.
Oh, cool.
And I still have the book. I've literally been offered hundreds of dollars for it, and I won't sell it. Oh, it's mine. I don't care. Yeah, I don't buy these things for monetary gain. It's for me. But Norman Reedus said he had never seen that comic book, and he took a picture of it for me and him holding the comic. And so he's got a picture of me and him holding this comic, which is cool. But my at that same Comic-Con, I got to meet Peter Mayhew.
Oh, wow.
And he signed his thing for me. And then, we talked for a little bit, and he was a really nice guy, really awesome dude. And then the guy behind me was wearing a full-scale Chewbacca outfit. And they asked me to take the picture for Peter and him standing. Peter was still, by the way, 2 inches taller than the guy with the stilts on.
Wow.
He was 2 inches taller. And I thought that was cool. But towards the end of the day, it was the last day of the con, towards the end of the day, Peter's table had finally started to kind of peter out. He didn't have a lot of people. And I just walked by and I just said, thank you so much for signing. And we started talking, and we talked for 45 minutes.
That's fantastic.
And just, we talked about the movies and how it's just so, just how amazing it was, all these effects and the practical stuff they did. And, how he was literally saying words, and then in post-production they added all that roar and growl and stuff. He was saying lines, like he had lines for the actors to, reciprocate with.
That's great. So what's up, guys?
Yeah. Okay.
Where's my medal? Where's my medal?
Okay, so there are some questions coming in. Let's see. Okay. Will there be any laughs in Terrifier 2, and will Art ever speak?
Of course there'll be laughs in Terrifier 2. You got to have that balance of comedy and tragedy. So I think I that's one thing I really wanted to add more to it was a lot more comedy, because I think when you have the laughs in there, it sets people up, sets them at ease, and sets them up for another good scare. So it gives people a chance to breathe for a second. Then you hit them again with another, like, oh man, now we're back into the horrible stuff again. And sometimes you're laughing at things that you should not be laughing at. And I think that's an interesting commentary on, human nature. It's like, man, he's doing this really sick, deprived stuff, like wearing someone's skin and just blah, 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 but you're laughing at it. I'm like, why am I laughing at this? What's this say about me? So I think that's fun. But as for him speaking, no. I think as soon as he speaks, the magic of the character is lost. It's just like, Chaplin said about the Tramp characters. Like, you never want to hear him talk.
And that question came from Jay Super Awesome, also known as Jack. Really good guy.
Cool.
I want to add a little.
Thanks, Jack.
I want to add a little addendum on that. I want to know, and I've been thinking about this all night, and I kept forgetting to ask. Can Art speak, or does he just choose not to?
We might explore that in the future, so I don't want to say.
Okay, good, cool. All right, another question. This one is from one of my Super Slash brothers. We stream every Friday nights. We have great conversations about horror and anything else we feel like. The Horror Man, which is the most disturbing horror movie you've ever watched?
Oh, God. I would say probably Hostel. I
Really?
had a hard time. Yeah, that was just like I got really squeamish during that one. It was just the eyeball stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time with eyeball stuff, and I have a hard time with broken bones and stuff like that too in movies. So it's like that Hostel was really that was for me.
So I'm assuming you've never seen a Serbian film.
No, I have not. No,
You don't want
I
to.
hear it's pretty gruesome.
It's not even the gruesome. It's just well, just my own opinion. The director says that he was trying to make some sort of political statement with it. I
Oh
think it's
yeah.
bullcrap. I think it was just their excuse to show child porn.
Oh
It
God, no.
literally has like it's disgusting. Like,
I don't want to see anything like
but
that.
and the funny part actually though is that I watched it because somebody sent it to me and they wanted me to review it, so I watched it.
Hmm.
For the first 60 minutes of the movie, whatever it is, however movie long, the first first 2/3 of the movie, I
Hmm.
was bored out of my gourd.
Yeah.
It was so boring. And then they have this like totally shocking stuff towards the end, which was just shock for shock's sake.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this was just baloney. I just hated it.
I hate it when a horror film bores me. I don't want to name any names, but there have been some that come out in the past few years. So I've just been like, I fell asleep during them.
Okay,
And my,
I gotta ask. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
yeah,
Did you see the new Wrong Turn?
I have not yet. No.
Okay. When you watch it, do me a favor, send me a message. Please tell me you're on my side and you like that movie because I loved
Okay.
it.
Well, my buddy Damon Maffei's in it, so I want to see it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's been a pretty polarizing movie for the
Mhm.
new horror. I loved it. I think a lot of people are just kind of stuck that it's not the Wrong Turn characters, like the same characters we've always had. But I just love that movie.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so Jackson Ross wants to know too. Will there be eyeball stuff in Terrifier 2? I'm starting to feel like Terrifier needs more eyeball stuff now. They
We'll
had some cool
see.
eyeball stuff, like the girls when she takes that other girl's face out at the beginning and
Yeah.
kind of makes it look like her face,
Yep.
with the
It
one
gouged
eyeball.
her eyes out. Yeah. Well, Art was even trying to gouge Tara's eyes out at one point too.
Frenzy Poo says David Howard Thornton reminds me of Bill Irwin in the best possible way possible.
Well, thank you. I'll take that.
Okay, okay. My friend Craig, he likes to change his name on his thing a lot to mess around with people. He has a channel of his own, really cool guy. He wants to know if you've ever seen Gags the Clown.
Gags the Clown. Gags the Clown. That sounds so familiar.
It's an
I
independent film, and I'm not sure if it's an Australian one or not. I think it might be, but
Gags the Clown. Let me
it's like an independent kind of
look. Maybe if I see
obviously
the
not
character.
that.
Gags the Clown. Sorry, I'm actually looking at my phone
Oh,
real
that's
quick.
okay. That's all right. That's our, like I've said, people these days don't understand the struggle that we had to go through in the 80s and 90s. Or if we wanted to look something up, we
Oh,
had to go to
this.
a giant
I
book.
have not seen this yet. No, I have not seen it yet.
There's some great clown movies out there.
Oh yeah, there really are. There
There's some
really
that are
are.
better than others. There's some that are bad.
Mm-hmm.
There's some that are
It's like
great.
one that I always tell people to watch if you like depraved stuff is Circus of the Dead by Billy Pond. That's like Papa Corn. That character is pretty. Woo.
Yeah,
They do some
really
pretty sick, demented stuff in that movie. It's one of those movies that's very grungy.
I almost put this down on one of the promos I put for this interview was two killer clowns getting together because I don't know if you understand. I don't know if you know much about the Juggalo world or what Juggalos even are, but it's a clown, type of thing.
Yes.
But it's a totally different kind of clown.
We actually have a partnership with Twisted now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like. There's been a big giant rift in the Juggalo world for like the last less 5-6 years because of the whole split between Twisted and ICP.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that just wishes they would stop and put it aside and just for the fans at least. I'm not saying they got to be best friends or anything, but just because the music they made together was so good, and the projects they did together, like I don't know if you've seen the movies they did, Big Money Hustlers, Big Money Rustlers.
Mhm.
Those are so funny and just so fun.
I'll have to check those out. Yeah.
Yeah, they're ICP's movies, and Twisted steals the show in them. They're just so funny. They're
Oh, those
hilarious.
guys are so fun. Yeah, I did
Yeah,
Astronomicon with them last
yeah,
year, and
I knew you did, and I was
yeah.
like, man, I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah.
I still love Twisted. I don't. Some of their newer music is not my favorite, but it's getting a little more kind of mainstreamy for me. But that's
Mhm.
just my opinion. But they're still great. I think they're good guys.
Yeah.
I'm trying. That would be like a caveat for me to get Jamie Madrox on this stream because he's such a horror movie person and such
Yeah.
a comic book person and all the things that I love. I want to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I've met the guy. I've met him countless times. I've got his autographs. I've talked to him. I've sat down with him.
You should reach out to him
I
then.
smoked a joint with him, back in the day. This was back in the day, but but I've never been able to like really sit down and talk like a one-on-one kind of situation.
Yeah.
So that would be so awesome to get. But yeah, I hope whatever you guys are doing together, I hope it's awesome because I would love to see it. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
anything you come out with.
Yeah. We got some merchandise coming out with them and stuff like that, so it's kind of cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, we got some more questions. Does the dark hair girl in the Oh, shut up, Craig. I'm not asking him that. He's just messing around. I don't know if you can see the chat or not.
No, I can't see the chat, unfortunately.
He's just messing around. He asked if she had an OnlyFans page.
Oh.
He's just messing around though. He says all kind of stuff about my wife, and I talk about him.
Yeah.
Let's see. He does say that she was very beautiful though.
Oh yeah.
Will there be a larger kill count in part 2?
Yes. Definitely so.
Let's see. Have you ever seen Circus Kane?
No, I have not.
That's a decent clown. That's another question somebody want. It's a decent. I like Circus Kane a lot. It's it's kind of it's a different kind of movie though. It's not just a clown. It's about this guy he owned a circus, and then all of a sudden the circus is coming back after it's been mysteriously gone for years.
Mm-hmm.
And he sends out these golden VHS tapes to bring people in, and then when he gets them in, he starts killing them all.
Oh, interesting.
Kind of like a Willy Wonka for circus.
Yeah.
And horror.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Craig. He said that made my day. Brad has no filter. I was like, well, yeah, I don't. But I started reading the question, and guys, I just told him before the interview, I'm not going to ask him anything that would make anybody uncomfortable. I'm trying to be nice. Okay, what are your thoughts on horror reboots and/or remakes, or do you just prefer sequels?
It just depends how they're done. I guess it's so subjective because if you can do a reboot or a remake and actually add something new to it, but at the same time keep things in that same vein, then it's all cool. But I mean, I think at the same time though, it's I think we need some new blood now though. It's because I think we're getting too much into remake and reboot and that kind of territory right now instead of trying to actually create new characters. I mean, that happened for a while too before Freddy and Jason, all those guys came. You had so many of the Universal monster movies for the longest time, and then Freddy, Jason, Mike Myers, all those came along. So it's like, yeah, we need some new blood out there now.
And that's really why one other reason too why I loved Terrifier so much was it was new, it was different, it was brutal. Same thing with and it's a completely different kind of horror film, but still a really good one. The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Yes.
I have one friend that doesn't like that movie, and it's funny because he's the filmmaker, and you think he'd be the one that loved it the most.
Yeah,
he doesn't like it. Just the way they went about that movie, and also the way they put it into a world where all these people, these killers, existed.
Yeah,
that's cool. Or Summer of '84. That to me, a lot. I've even heard the argument that Summer of '84 is not even a horror movie; it's a mystery movie, at least until the end. But it is a horror movie in the sense that you got this building tension that just goes more and more and more, and then we get the brutal stuff towards the end. But they did it in such a way to where maybe it was nostalgia, maybe it's whatever, where you were never bored through any of it.
Right.
And that's what's great about stuff like that. And that's one of the things I loved that's totally different from what you guys did, but still amazing, is you guys started out and it was just like bam, and the pacing never stopped, and it's hitting you in the face over and over and over again. But it wasn't just for the shock's sake. It was done in such a way that it was fun and it was so enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
So I didn't walk away from Terrifier going, yeah, they were just seeing how brutal they could get, you know.
Right,
I walked
right.
away from
We
it going,
weren't trying just to be total gore porn. I mean, we have a lot of big gory moments, but we weren't trying to be gore porn. You know, because I think some people are like, oh, they're like, no, that's not the intention. It's like, we want to have really cool, really cool kill scenes, but we still want to be an entertaining movie in itself. We don't want the whole movie depending on just gore.
we got another comment here that says, art is the new blood we desperately need. Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree with that too. And like I said, I'm a huge Halloween fan. Michael Myers is my favorite of all time. I will watch every Halloween movie that ever comes out. I don't care if they make 1 million of them. I will be there to watch them. I want to see every single one.
Same
but
here.
I want to see new characters too.
Yeah.
I want to see a new batch of.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned, Mike Myers and all that, because recently they posted a whole article about the new film. They're saying he's going to be a lot more vicious than before and a lot more brutal and everything. I'm like, I've seen a lot of, I don't know if it's us that's caused this, but like since Terrifier came out, I've been seeing a lot of these mainstream horror films trying to push, now we're going to be brutal and vicious and bloodier than ever before. And I'm like, did we put a fire under Hollywood's butt?
Maybe
not just us. Maybe it's a lot of independent films.
There may be something that I have noticed that, like with, let's say Halloween per se, just within the Halloween. Okay, if you watch those movies, and let's exclude 3. I hate that movie, but whatever. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
They did get progressively more brutal, things like that.
Right.
My particular favorite Michael Myers since I was a kid was George P. Wilbur, part 4 and part 6. But it's his part 6 performance I like the most, because to me is still the most brutal Myers, even more than or than Tyler Maines. Because Tyler Maines was brutal, but Tyler Maines was such a huge, imposing person that you expected it to be brutal. When you watch Halloween 6, you expected to see what you saw in Halloween 5, 4, and 2, and so on. You didn't expect. He raised that brutality in part 6 so much that I just fell in love with that version of Michael. He's my favorite Michael. And then now James Hugh Courtney, it seems like he's taken it to a new level. I love James Hugh Courtney's performances too. Yeah. And maybe that is because of films like Terrifier that are getting attention, and that's awesome to me.
I'm hoping that's the case, because that's one thing that's bothered me about especially slashers in the past decade or so. They've gotten to be more PG-13 than rated R. They're all trying to be tamer because they want to bring in a bigger audience, I guess. They think that's so, like, we'll make it PG-13 and more people come see it. But like, I think it cheapens the genre a lot because they're trying to be safer with things. They're not showing the kills as much anymore. It's just like it, and it seems like there's so many missed opportunities. And like, I don't want to name the film, but I know there was a film one of my friends was in, and they filmed a rated R version of the movie. And what this person had told me about the movie, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be incredible. I'm hoping this is going to be a new franchise, because this character they have for this is a really cool concept and all that. And then the movie comes out and it's PG-13, and I see all this stuff, and I'm like, I watch it, I'm like, well, where was this that was supposed to happen? All these things that were supposed to happen. And I contacted my friend and like, oh yeah, they cut all that out because they want to make it PG-13 instead of rated R, because they want to bring teenagers into it. Put butts in the seat. I'm like, that's why it wasn't a success. If they had left all the stuff that they had originally cut out, I guarantee the movie would have been a lot more successful.
Yeah, anytime you I found that, like, anytime you compromise your art for that sake, it seems like it always works the opposite way.
Yeah,
and they did that a lot with. There were some other movies that they did that with. And it did hurt them in the box office. They become cult classics since, but it did hurt them originally.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. We were just talking about it the other night. It's a horror film, a really big, it became a big franchise, but at the same time, a lot of horror fans are like, no, that's not what we want to watch, because they did just kind of do it for the mainstream mass, and
Well, so that's the thing with Terrifiers. Like we're not trying to be mainstream. We're making horror films for horror fans, and we're horror fans ourselves. So we're making the type of film that we want to see.
The Horror Man would like to know your personal favorite horror franchise, favorite horror icon character, and why.
Oh, easy. My favorite franchise and character, they're the same grouping, I would say, is Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I think Freddy Krueger is the most creative villain ever created for a horror franchise. It's like the what Wes Craven created is just brilliant, because the character is like, for one, most of the stuff happens in your dreams. So that infinite possibilities, you can do whatever you want to with a dream. You can be as crazy and creative as you want to with that, because it happens in a dream setting. And that's what I love about it. It's like, wow, there are infinite possibilities with this character. Then he's got a great backstory, but just the concept of a villain that is in your dreams, that, Mike Myers and Jason and Chucky, you can escape from. You can get in your car, or you can get in a plane and get the hell out of there if you were smart about it. Freddy, you can't escape, because you have to sleep, because if you don't sleep, you're going to eventually die. So that's extremely scary, because you cannot escape him. You cannot escape him. And I was like, oh, brilliant concept for a villain. Plus, he's just got so much charisma.
Yeah, he's magnetic. And when I was younger as a kid, Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street was my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
And I still love him. Like, Halloween the movie itself, the first Halloween film, and Michael Myers became my favorite because of the concept of what he was. That there was no, before they tried giving him backstories and stuff, there was no reason or rhyme for why this child became this evil, just pure evil. And that became, as an adult, that concept and those thoughts made it. And really watched that movie again, I realized how scary that movie actually is, because I've seen it a million times. But I'll tell you this, man, when I was, back before I got married, and I used to do a lot more drinking and smoking, I would get high, dude. And I swear, after watching Halloween, I would see Michael Myers in the corner of my room.
Oh,
so like, it was
sit with the ghost sheet over his head.
Yeah. But that's why I tell people all the time, like, Halloween's here for me, and Nightmare on Elm Street is right here, not even a half a centimeter below it.
Yeah,
it's still especially that first movie is so scary.
Yeah,
but people say he had the comedy even in that first one. People just didn't realize it.
Oh yeah.
But so I have to ask now. So if that's your favorite, what did you think of that remake? Because I was so disgusted with. And I don't blame Jackie Earle Haley. I think Jackie Earle Haley did a fine job. The CG they put on him kind of messed his performance up, and all that. But my big question for you is like the backstory of Freddy. Yes, he was a child killer, but then they turned him into a child molester. And I was just like, I hated that.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Child killer is just bad enough. It's just like, oh God, he killed kids. It's just like, that's horrible. It's like, ugh. But it's like, it's like Jackie Earle Haley. I love him as an actor. Oh my God, Rorschach. Oh my God, he was amazing.
Very good.
Well, when he was on The Tick, even he was fantastic on The Tick. Is the Terror. I was like, oh my God, he's hysterical on this. He's a fantastic character actor. I have and when they originally cast him as Freddy, it's like, okay, I can't wait to see what he does with this. But it was just something about that film. I think the makeup, they were trying to be too realistic with the makeup, and it just didn't look right, because you're so used to Robert's iconic look, and it's like, if it doesn't look like that, it's not right. And you're also used to Robert's performance. Robert is Freddy Krueger. It's just like he has just that gravitas for him. He has the charisma. He's Freddy. It's just that wasn't the same with Jackie Earle Haley. It was just lacking there. He just did not have that. And I don't know if it was the writing or what. It was lacking that magic that Robert brought to it.
I remember me and Bill walking out of the theaters, and he wasn't impressed at all. And I was like, "Oh, it was pretty good," but I think it's because I wanted it to be good.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted.
I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it.
I didn't
it's been
hate it
years since
either
I
at
need to go
first.
back and watch it again, though. But
I
it's just
didn't
like,
hate it at first, but now I can't stand. I literally do hate the movie,
mhm.
and the reason why is I hate it when, and this is just me. Like I hate Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 because it shows a complete, in my opinion, disrespect for the entire franchise.
Mhm.
And I felt they did the same thing with the Child's Play remake. That bothered me. But the thing was with the Michael or with the Freddy movie, it was something I couldn't put my fingers on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until it came out on DVD and I watched it again, and then I watched it again, that I realized I finally figured out what it was.
Mhm.
They changed him to a child molester
Okay.
who never once killed a kid. They give what was the point? How do they took away the entire thing of what makes him Freddy? The glove?
Yeah.
He never had the glove. They don't,
Yeah.
he never used the glove on a kid. He
Yeah.
never did,
Yeah.
like in the context of their own film.
Like, why
the
would he
glove
have that glove then? It's just like
The
that was
glove
his
made
murder
no
weapon.
sense. It
Yeah,
made no
yeah.
sense. The boiler room in that movie, he doesn't die in a boiler room. He dies in an electrical room.
Mhm.
So why are they putting him in a boiler room in the dream? It's because it's a Freddy Krueger movie, and you have to have a boiler room and you have to have a glove.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And I was like, but in the
They
context
didn't
of
understand the
the story
character.
you're
That's the thing.
telling, yeah, in the context of the story you're telling, it didn't even.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, see, that was my problem with the new Child's Play movie too. Just like this, I feel like the new Child's Play movie could just have been another movie, and they could have just had a rogue AI character, like a toy.
It could have been any other killer.
Could have been
doll.
that bear. It could have been that bear, and I would have been totally fine with it. It could have been the same exact plot, and I would have been totally fine with it. But I'm like, because Chucky is supposed to be Chucky. He's supposed to be a guy that put his soul into this doll to when he's dying, trying to escape. And he's looking for a way to get his soul out of that doll. There's something, knowing that that's a human spirit inside of this doll it's terrifying. It's like the doll. Like I recently went back and rewatched the first one again, and it's just like the scene like when the batteries drop out and they're not opened, and he just turned his head. What? Hi, I'm Chucky. You want to play? It's like, oh God, that's terrifying. Yeah. That is terrifying because like this is not natural. This is not natural. It's as opposed to a rogue AI. Okay, it's just it's become self-aware. Okay, that's not nearly as scary to me. It's like some demonically possessed doll, basically. Like I love. I'm sorry, I have to move my laptop.
That's right.
I love Mark Hamill. I was like, because I'm like, I loved his performance. He was great in it.
I personally felt he really phoned that one in. I really did. To me, it literally, and I literally mean phoned it in, because to me, it literally just sounds like Mark Hamill talking to somebody on the telephone. That's what it sounded like to me. Like, dude, is Mark on the phone? Like, what's going on? That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, I remember like when they were having auditions for it and stuff like that before they had cast Mark, and people were like, Dave, you should go out for the part of Chucky. You could do a great Chucky. And I'm like, no. I'm like, if Brad Dourif is still alive, then Brad Dourif should be doing Chucky. Because like that's the beauty of Brad Dourif playing Chucky is like he doesn't have to worry about aging out of the role. He's always going to be able to play that role as long as he's able to speak. So it's like just let him do it. Just let him do it. It's just like. But yeah, it just was not nearly as good, and like I don't know why they had to make Andy hearing impaired when they never actually utilized that at all in the movie plot wise. It's just like it's like this is why did you have to bring any? Oh, sorry, I got a cat trying to get in the scene here. Hey, sweetie. But yeah, it's like those kind of things I had problems with. But I'm like, if that had just been any other character, I would have been fine. I would have been totally fine.
If it would have not been a Child's Play movie, I would have been a lot happier with it. Now, there were some things about the movie itself I didn't like the writing and the dialogue. I hated this one's for Tupac. I thought was the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
I just, but I think you're right. I think if it wasn't a Child's Play movie, and the fact that I didn't kind of see it as a blatant cash grab,
right?
Especially when you're not having the creator of Child's Play, who actually has a franchise still going over here. You're
I
gonna
mean,
go and try
Cult of
and
Chucky just came out like a year or so before,
Mhm.
so it's just
and
like,
then they were working on the TV show,
yeah,
you know,
which
and
I
all
can't
that,
wait to
and
see.
another movie. Yeah, me too. I cannot wait. And now Devin Saw was attached to it, which is so funny because you're just a couple years older than me.
Hmm.
So you'll remember when Devin Sawa was the teeny bopper boy.
Oh yeah,
You know, it's like, man, nobody took him seriously back then. And now, like, you know, but then again, I didn't take Leonardo DiCaprio seriously either until I saw Catch Me If You Can,
yeah, yeah.
you know. So,
It's funny how
but,
that goes, you know. It's just
yeah.
like, oh, look at that, look at that.
Well, this has been absolutely great,
Hey,
guys.
Kitty.
Is everybody out of questions? I've had a blast. We've gone for a little over 2 hours, and
Stop it.
this has just been absolutely fun. I hope that everybody enjoyed themselves. Mr. Thornton, I thank you for joining me.
Oh, you're
I hope
very
you enjoyed
welcome.
yourself.
I did. Oh my
Yeah,
God, we've been on talking for 2 hours. Holy
2 hours.
crap!
Yeah, kind of
Wow.
flew.
Yeah, it
It
did.
feels like we just started.
Yeah. Well, it's because we're having fun. That's the
Yeah,
important thing.
yeah, it is. And you know, like I said, I know that I speak for just about everybody in the chat and people that will watch this, you know, interview later on that couldn't join us live.
Hmm.
We all can't wait for Terrifier 2.
Well, I
And I
can't
also can't
wait
wait to
to
see
get
what
it out.
else you had in store for us in other
Oh
movies.
yeah. Well, I am working on another horror film with a lot of the Terrifier crew right now. Damien's doing the practical effects on it. It's called Stream. I play one of the killers in it. That's about all I can reveal. But it's got a lot of classic horror actors in it as well.
Awesome, awesome,
Some
awesome.
people I am like amazed to just be included among. I'm like, this is people I've watched since I was a child, and I get to. I mean, I'm not necessarily in scenes with them, but I've been able to watch them film their own scenes, and
Right.
it's been a master's class for me to be able to watch these actors
Nice.
do their thing. I'm like, this is I've been like a kid on set. I'm just like, this is, oh my God.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah, we
And
hope this is going to be another franchise as well. So
nice.
stay tuned for this one as well. As you guys are in for a real treat because we're not pulling punches with the kills in this either.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so funny too because you remember back in the day, all the versus movies and meetup movies they had, like Demonic Toys,
Mhm.
Puppet Master, stuff like that. I would love to see Art the Clown meets Leslie Vernon. Like,
Oh yeah.
could you imagine those two? Because like they're the way they were both kind of resurrected at the end seemed almost. But you know, Leslie with his mindset, he planned it all that way.
Yeah.
So, but and like you said, the way your character comes back, it's like, oh, new me. You know,
Yep.
could you imagine those two just like going?
Huh.
I almost imagine them going, yeah, like screw you, buddy, and they try to kill each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Who knows? And Nathan, I love Nathan who plays him as well. It's like the funny thing is, Nathan and I did Pop Rock and Horror a few years ago together, and I realized when I was there, I'm like, Nathan, wait a minute. Right before I moved up to New York City in my hometown of Huntsville, Alabama, we filmed this movie. I think it's later changed the name to like 20 years after or something like that. But I was just an extra in the movie, and Nathan played the main antagonist in the movie. And he and I kind of chatted a lot on set because he impressed me because they tried to keep all of us extras separate from the main actors and everything like that. And he was like, "Oh, screw this!" And he came over and sat down with all of us while we're eating lunch and everything. He was very personable. He's like he wanted to get to know all of us and everything. I was like, "That's so cool." And we're there at the convention, and I'm like, "You look so familiar." And he's like, "You look so familiar." And it's like 20 years later, he's like, "Oh my God, yes."
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just funny. We're like,
We're
"Holy
getting some
crap."
comments saying, no, we don't want to see art with anybody else. Just art. So, guys, I'm just speculating, just having some
Yeah,
fun.
it's fun to speculate, But I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I don't think Damien ever wants to do any kind of cross things with the characters and stuff like that.
That's what fan fictions are for.
Exactly.
You
It's
know?
fine. That's fine. Let the fans come up with that fun stuff. I enjoy some of the fan fictions I've seen of people's ideas for his origins have been very entertaining.
Yeah.
I love that.
A lot of that stuff can be so much fun, but
Hmm.
that's also where a lot of fans start turning on people when they get this fan fiction of their own idea in their head, and then it doesn't come out the way they want it.
Yeah, that's that dangerous line you always got to walk. When you're
Mhm.
exploring an origin of a character, it's like, okay, how much do we really want to reveal? Because the idea that people have in their heads is probably always going to surpass what you can bring to them, because they love their idea so much.
Yeah.
So how do we address that?
Exactly, and that's when fandoms, in my opinion, start to get a little kind of toxic. The way Star Wars fandom has kind of gotten, and
yeah, oh yeah,
that
happened with the sequels, where people are like, oh, like Rey's parentage and stuff like that.
It happened with the prequels though too.
Oh yeah,
It's so funny. All these people that hate the sequels, 10 years ago they were bashing George Lucas for the prequels, but now they love the prequels and they hate the sequels. 10 years from now, they're going to
still prefer the sequels over the prequels. Midichlorians, I'm like, oh god, it's like, I don't want to know about midichlorians. I like the whole thing is like, it's just the Force. That's all I have to know. It's like, oh, it's just the Force. I'm like, that's a great.
That's kind of why they kind of dropped the midichlorian thing a little bit. Like they kind of just dropped it.
It's like, let's not talk about these microorganisms that are actually doing. That takes all the fun out of it. It takes the mystique, the mysticism.
It makes me think of a Mr. Clean commercial somewhere. They show the infrared of the bug.
Yeah. No, it's like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Well, thank you so much again, David, for joining us. We truly appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on here.
This is going to definitely be a highlight of my YouTube career.
Oh, fantastic. Glad I could help them.
Guys, thank you all very much for joining us. And we're going to say good night. And this is Bronco Juggalo saying peace.
Peace.